Good morning, Andre. It's good to see you again. Welcome. Andre is the CEO of PPP Training Online, and I'm going to ask Andre to quickly give you a short summary of what a PPP is, and then I would like him to answer the question that I have prepared. What do investment banks say about PPPs to foster economic growth? I think we're all interested in economic growth in South Africa because we all feel a little bit oppressed of what's going on, and economic growth will stimulate our thinking and our moods. Thank you, Andre. Welcome again.
Morning, Anne-Marie. So PPPs, for those that haven't heard some of the previous podcasts, is an alternative procurement mechanism for governments to use. It is a structured way to contract with the private sector over the long term. Many PPPs could be for 20 years, for 30 years. If you move to the port and rail space, it could be for 30 to 50 years. So it is an alternative procurement mechanism. The question about economic growth, what has happened since the end of COVID is that many countries actively started pursuing the use of PPPs to grow their economies. And there is significant success stories across the world whereby countries have really managed to fast track economic growth all around. Investment banks specifically, and Investec in South Africa, states the following. PPPs effectively channel diverse stakeholders, resources and expertise to address public needs, making them game changers in addressing a country's developmental and infrastructure challenges. Across Africa, new synergies between public and private sectors are emerging to tackle the blockages that hinder economic growth. So South Africa is on a path, at least now, to try and foster economic growth. Our PPP unit in South Africa will be enlarged. The different players in the market, the infrastructure fund, the DBSA activities, and the PPP unit sitting within GTAC in Treasury will be consolidated where they belong within the Ministry of Finance, within specifically the Treasury, and they will then be responsible for PPPs for the regulation, advisory and regulatory function across South Africa. So what an opportunity for South Africa, for the next African country, if we stick with Africa for the moment, to assist with economic growth.
So how likely is it that companies and government departments will buy into PPPs? Is it very likely? Are they aware of it? Are they not aware? Is it something new to everybody?
Anne-Marie, that's a very good question. 17, 18 years ago, South Africa was one of the leaders in the world regarding PPPs. The certified PPP professional program and its courses that we deliver through PPP Training Online was co-developed by South Africans. Today, we are one of the weaker players across Africa in the PPP market, even although we've still got areas of specialization like the IPP office, the Independent Power Producing Office, the new offices that are being created to focus on transmission lines, on water, etc., etc. So we need to get back to that situation where we were one of the leaders and where we were very well informed about the use of PPPs. Currently, unfortunately, our national government departments, provincial government, state-owned entities are not as empowered as they should be. The staff being used to develop these projects need to be upskilled quite drastically. We cannot continue using people in government that are procuring on a traditional basis for those same people to lead the development of a PPP project. It is much more intense. It now deals with life cycle cost management, meaning that you've got to consider the life cycle cost of this project over the next 20 to 30 years In a traditional procured project, you're only concerned about the construction costs. And then you provide input specifications to the private sector. You tell them what they would build at what quality. In a PPP, it's different. The private sector will now build adhering to government's output specifications. Maybe enough about that. We can, at the next occasion, also expand on that. So we need increased capacity in government. And we probably need to upskill those that want to, or advertise and bring in new people, qualified people, experienced people to help develop these projects.
Great, thank you. That's a good answer. And then I would like to ask you, what do the World Bank and the international finance corporations do to assist countries with growing their economies and making use of PPPs?
Interestingly, that the World Bank is playing this custodian role. On the initiative of the World Bank in 2016, the Certified PPP Professional Program was developed with the understanding that this will help, especially developing countries, with standardized processes, standardized wording, definitions, etc., etc. And that has actually been working very well. Even in South Africa, 6 years ago, the World Bank assisted the country to review our PPP framework, meaning the legislation, the regulations, etc., in our country. And 6 years ago, they came to the conclusion that we need a stronger PPP unit. We need revised regulations, etc., etc. Now, they've done that for many countries across Africa, if we just stick to Africa for that purposes. Worldwide, they are also actively supporting countries that express a willingness to use PPPs to grow the economy. In Africa, there are quite a number of countries that actively pursue PPPs to grow their economies. And there's a few outside of Africa included in my list now: Morocco, Rwanda, Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Kenya, Tanzania, and then Colombia, Kenya, Philippines, and I can continue. A number of countries are actively using it. So South Africa may be a little bit behind the curve, but I think there's quite significant developments taking place in South Africa because of a lack of funding now. It's the wrong reason to do PPPs, but at least it's a solution to hopefully get us out of the squeeze of not having sufficient liquidity, not having sufficient solvability, meaning long-term loan capacity. We are overborrowed as a country, but PPPs assist you to overcome some of those problems if managed well.
That's good news. I think some of the companies can really make use of PPP. So what is required to underpin using PPPs to grow an economy? It's a complex system, but can you please explain a bit more?
Yeah. So let's try and pick, let's say, the top 5, the top 6 issues that are very important for a PPP program to be successful in any country. And one of the very first issues is you need macroeconomic stability. You need certainty. What's happening in South Africa right now, because of internal politics, external politics, etc., is that there's quite a bit of uncertainty. That's not a good space. So in this huge uncertainty, we are now trying to re-enter the PPP space, if I can put it in those words. It's completely the wrong time. It's the right program to follow. So maybe, hopefully, the right will overcome the negatives in the system. We need stability. And why do we need stability? So the private sector, international private sector that may want to invest in South Africa will only invest in a country if there is political stability, if there's economic stability. If there's no stability, you will go to Botswana. Botswana is a stable country with a monetary unit that is stronger, that the pula is stronger than the South African rand. So why would you enter as a foreign company in South Africa rather than Botswana, where there's a stable economy, there is some major PPP projects being developed. So you need, from a competitive perspective, to have stability, political stability. You need good leadership in any country. You need macroeconomic stability, those things that we have already focused on. So around South Africa right now, we've got Angola, a little bit more stability. They've been quite unstable over the last number of years, decades. But there's a little bit more stability, and they are using PPPs, especially also in the water space, where we still sort of are very careful, and we use 100 excuses why we shouldn't do PPPs in the water space. I think those arguments are really all very old, 10, 20 years old. So I think it's time also then to think about different sectoral PPPs. So I've touched on macroeconomic stability, certainty, political stability. And the next thing that you need is a sound PPP framework. So which countries in Africa has got a sound PPP framework where there are many projects in development? Maybe some of the North African countries, Egypt, Morocco, where they have got 60, 70, 80 projects, PPP projects that are going to be developed or procured on a PPP basis. Coming down to East Africa, I think the leading countries there would be Kenya, Rwanda, and then even Ethiopia, that previously was a centralized economy opening up, and they are using PPPs for those purposes, also to grow the economy. Then specifically, the point I made earlier is we need capacitated government institutions. We need government staff that are able to take the lead in a development of a project. So let me use a practical example. The Gauteng provincial government want to centralize all their government staff into a precinct in the central part of Johannesburg Metro. That project has been considered for the last maybe even 15 years. They have gone through various iterations of feasibility studies, have spent millions of rands, 50 million plus rands to develop the feasibility studies. Fortunately for them, in the Gauteng provincial government, they've got a specialized, can I call them a PPP unit? They are being called GIFA, Gauteng Infrastructure Finance Unit. But they, in essence, facilitate the development of feasibility studies. That is the type of capacity that you need. And then even if you do have the capacity, if there's political interference in the process or economic instability, then you get projects that have been in the market for 15 years and have still not been finalized. Hopefully that project will come back into the market, and hopefully in the next year or two, they will be able to redo the feasibility study, bring that to the market, and hopefully the private sector will still bid for that, because some of them have also spent millions in bidding in previous RFPs, requests for proposals. Many companies have formed consortiums and bid, and they've lost millions of rands because the government didn't follow through. So those are a few points. You wanted to raise contract management as a point. So let me add contract management. So we've dealt with macroeconomic stability, political stability, a sound framework, capacitated institutions, contract management. Most of the failures in PPPs worldwide are because of a lack of proper contract management by the same government institution that initially decided it's going to procure a service or a building or a road on a PPP basis. So what is very important is that we have qualified, experienced people managing this performance-based PPP contract over the life of the contract. These contract managers report on a regular basis to the board of the private sector, to the board, the council of a government institution. On the private sector, there will also be a person with a contract management type responsibility, and on government side, there will be an identified contract manager or a team. In the Gautrain rail project, that team consists of more than 100 people. So the contract management team are made up mostly of professionals managing that multi-billion rand project.
Question before you carry on. Is that the type of training you give, a public-private partnership training online? Is that the training that you give to give the people skills to manage, to contract manage it? Where do they get the skills for that? Is that a subject at university? How do they get skilled?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So allow me then to expand a little bit on the Certified PPP Professional Program and its courses.
Yeah.
And like any education program that you follow,
yes,
you will learn the theory. We try and make this CP3P, that's the abbreviation for Certified PPP Professional Program. The CP3P will provide you with the theory, and we try and bring in as much as possible case studies to make it real. But then again, you need probably professionals participating in these courses and then apply their disciplines, either engineering or finance or legal or environmental or social, based on their own specialization. So you need that's why I made the point earlier on that you need capacitated people. So our course helped them to specialize in PPPs. It helps them to understand the basic principles. The first level, the foundation course, provides people with an overview of the whole PPP process cycle. The second course helps you to learn about the steps and the processes to be followed to prepare a feasibility study or an appraisal study, as it is called in the CP3P guide, taking you through the early stages of procurement, a request for qualification, a request for proposal, through the principles relevant to a PPP. The last course deal with the appointment of a preferred bidder, as well as the contract management part. So the last course deals with contract management. We are also busy preparing a specialized course on contract management that will take the general principles into a more hands-on practical course. And we will do that in collaboration with some private sector specialists in the contract management phase. An interesting story. In South Africa, most of the contract managers that were involved in our PPPs in South Africa in the early years have now been headhunted, and they are working in Saudi Arabia and in the United Arab Emirates. And those guys are using PPPs to grow their economies, to literally change Saudi Arabia, to change the whole format, if that's the right word, of their economy, to a tourism-orientated, etc., building new infrastructure. And they do everything, most of what they do on a PPP basis. So many South Africans, the qualified ones that qualified as PPP specialists and as PPP contract management specialists, work in that space now. So we've got a huge shortage of qualified people in that space.
Andre, you know what? This is quite enlightening to hear what you say. And when you talked about Rwanda and those countries in Africa that really went through tough times and that they are now getting back to being economically viable or prospering, it gives me hope for South Africa, because South Africa, you know, I'm sure every country goes through a low and then eventually it will pick up and work towards a high. It is really enlightening, and I just feel a little bit of an excitement about it.
It's really a very nice opportunity for South Africa to re-establish itself as a leader in the PPP space. Because the more PPPs we do, the more people get exposed to PPPs, the more they stop talking nonsense, if you will allow me, about PPPs. Many people resist entering into PPPs or wanting to talk about PPPs. And today, I can fairly confidently say that many of those are those that may be involved in fraud and corruption. because PPPs also help countries to minimize fraud and corruption. And why? Because there's excellent oversight by the PPP unit. And I've said our PPP unit in South Africa will be strengthened even further now. Bankers also support these projects with very good oversight, making sure that there are no politically exposed parties, etc., etc. So I think all these naysayers, hopefully we will be able to push them to the side and move forward with a rational new way of procuring infrastructure, assets, and services, and for government to serve the community in a better way, in a more successful way.
Yeah, that is why it's important that you come online to give this information, because many people don't know and listen to the naysayers all the time. And because that's all they hear, that's all they believe then. So thank you very much. Is there anything else that you would like to add to today's podcast?
No, maybe just to wrap up and say that South Africa desperately need to grow the economy for a variety of reasons. Here we have a procurement model that has been tested and tried the world over in autocratic, democratic countries. I think in a previous occasion, I've mentioned that China is one of the biggest users of PPPs. Russia, even although they are not the favorites worldwide right now because of what they do, even they have PPPs. So it's not linked to a specific political party or linked to a specific ideology. It's a massive opportunity for South Africa, the South African development community, to grow the South. Southern Africa. Southern Africa has fallen behind, big time behind East Africa, for other reasons as well. But we need South Africa to be strong for the rest of the Southern Africa development community to also be strong.
Andre, now, if there's anybody listening to this and they want to upskill themselves in the area of public-private partnerships, how do they contact you?
Well, maybe the easiest is to use the website, ppptrainingonline.com, or alternatively to use the email, Andre, ANDRE, at ppptrainingonline.com. One word, PPP Training Online. They are most welcome.
Thank you very much for your time. Most insightful interview, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.